very good evening. From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. I'm Vidishni Sadish Kumar.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Javed Bongzo and we begin with the headlines of tonight's news.
A decision to increase the minimum wage by 25%. Cabinet ministers grant approval to implement the decisions and recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate incidents of political revenge. Market analysts indicate that the positive monetary policies of the government has contributed to the growth achieved by the Colombo Stock Exchange. A UMP councillor in Mihintale Pradesh Sabha assaults its opposition leader.
In your local stories this evening, Cabinet of Ministers have granted approval to implement the decisions and recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate incidents of political revenge. Cabinet spokesman Minister Keheliya Rambukwala said that the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in this regard. Well, this was revealed at the media briefing held at the Department of Government Information today to announce the Cabinet decisions. Cabinet spokesman Minister Keheliya Rambukwala said that the decisions and recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate incidents of political revenge are expected to be presented to the Parliament. In the meantime, he also addressed on the amendments to be brought into several acts as referred by the Cabinet Subcommittee on Constitutional Affairs for recommendations. Accordingly, recommendations have been submitted on Immigrants and Emigrant Act, Stamp Duty Act and Provincial Council Act, National Minimum Wage of Workers Act, Community-Based Corrections Act and Section 53 of the Penal Code. The minister said that the subcommittee has recommended to increase the minimum wage of workers up to 25% and the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for this recommendation.
අවම වේතනය 125කින් වැඩි කරන්නටත් අනු කමිටුව විසින් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන කරුණු සම්බන්ධව කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ අවසරය ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා.
The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to provide relief for electricity consumers affected due to COVID-19 pandemic conditions. A decision was reached to provide a 6-month grace period from the date of the bill and avoid interruption of electricity connections of the domestic, commercial and industrial consumers within the areas isolated for more than 14 days continuously in order to settle the electricity bills pertaining to the specified period. The opportunity has been provided to settle electricity bills from the month of March to December 2020 of the film theatres registered under the National Film Corporation in 12 equal installments from the date of the relevant bill. Also, a decision has been reached to provide the opportunity to settle electricity bills and water bills from March 1, 2020 to February 28, 2021 of the inns registered under Sri Lanka Tourist Development Authority and avoid interruptions accordingly. Media personnel at the briefing inquired over the COVID-19 infection of several security officers at Sri Dalada Maligava. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to draft the Sign Language Bill. The relevant proposal was presented by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Market analysts have indicated that the positive monetary policies introduced by the government has largely contributed to the growth achieved by the Colombo Stock Exchange since the beginning of this year. Accordingly, the all-share price index, which is the main index of the Colombo Stock Exchange, recorded its all-time high yesterday. The Bloomberg International Ratings has identified Colombo Stock Exchange as the second best performing equity market in the world. The Colombo Stock Exchange has surpassed the 12 billion mark in turnover within 2 consecutive days, exemplifying market's integrity and quality in ensuring the investor confidence and market performance. The Colombo Stock Exchange was able to achieve its highest accomplishments in its 35 years of history within the first 3 weeks of this year. Analysts have indicated that many investors have directed interest in investing in the stock market in the post-COVID-19 economic landscape.
The Colombo Stock Exchange has been extremely active since beginning of last year 2020, and we have seen this trend continuing even this year as well in the first 12 days of this year. Now if you look at all the market indicators in terms of volumes, in terms of the daily turnover, in terms of the all share price index and the S&P SL20 index, we have seen a significant growth. And another factor that we have seen is that 90% of the activity that is generated is by local investors, which is a good thing, and broad basing of the market. And we have also seen that there are larger numbers of new investors, younger segment of investors who have been coming into the market in recent times.
The Securities and Exchange Commission welcomes the present developments in the Colombo Stock Exchange, and globally we have been ranked as the #1 stock market according to reports released by Bloomberg. We welcome this situation, and I think in my view there have been several factors that has resulted in this situation, and main amongst them would be the low interest regime that is presently prevalent. Investors have looked for alternative investment avenues, and it seems the stock market is seen as a preferred destination. In addition to this, we saw the interest shown or the importance placed by the government with regard to the capital market. There was a state ministry that was created for capital markets. Then we saw in the last budget of November where several concessions were given to this sector. That added together with the digitalization of the end-to-end operations of the stock exchange has been another factor. With the digitalization, we saw it is possible for any investor to open a CDS account online and commence trading straight away. The ease with which trading can take place now is another significant feature in my view. And another message that the SEC wishes to convey to the general public is that unlike any other investment, this investing in the stock market also has to be undertaken after considerable thought, and one has to, like in any other investment, in making investments in the stock market also, the investors should do a study, should engage in a proper study, evaluate market conditions, and take informed decisions. As the regulator of the capital market, this is the message that we would like to give to the general public.
Well, moving on to COVID-19 update home. The number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country has increased up to 46,594. Accordingly, the percentage of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country is at 86.15. Meanwhile, a total of 7,223 COVID-19 patients are receiving treatments at present. A total of 11,365 COVID-19 recoveries have been reported in the country since the beginning of this month. Another 774 COVID-19 recoveries were reported in the country today. Another 337 COVID-19 patients were identified in the island today. 14,984 PCR tests were conducted yesterday. Accordingly, the total number of PCR tests up to now has reached 1,515,289. The number of COVID-19 patients in Vavuniya districts has increased up to 202. Therefore, officials attached to state institutions have been directed to PCR tests from today onwards. Accordingly, Vavuniya Divisional Secretariat was directed to PCR tests today. A total of 103 persons have been identified as COVID-19 patients from the random rapid antigen testing carried out since December 21st for those who leave Western Province in the outskirts of the region. Meanwhile, another 6 COVID-19 related deaths were reported yesterday. The deceased have been identified as residents from Colombo 3, Colombo 15, Modara, Kaluthura South, Dehiwala and Ratnapura. Kegalle District Health Services Director Dr. Kumara Wickramasinghe has said that travel restrictions have been imposed in Vilpola village belonging to Aranayaka Medical Health Officers Division today. 13 COVID-19 patients have been identified from the village at present. Meanwhile, opportunity was facilitated for the recovered COVID-19 patients residing in isolated Atalugama area to leave the restricted zone following the completion of their mandatory quarantine period. Minister of Health has decided to postpone all examinations scheduled to be held from January 23rd until February 8th. The new dates for the examinations will be announced in future. A group of tourists who arrived into the country under the pilot project on tourism visited the Polonnaruwa archaeological sites. The group consisted of 45 tourists. Following the arrival, the zone was closed down for local travellers. The sites were reopened for the local tourists in accordance to health guidelines after the departure of the foreign tourists. Meanwhile, head of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak, Army Commander General Shavendra Silva said that the repatriation of Sri Lankan workers will be carried out continuously without any hindrance.
And the Secretary to the State Ministry of Primary Health Services, Pandemics and COVID Prevention, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, urges the public not to create any unnecessary fear over the COVID-19 vaccination, as the experts are in the constant lookout for information related to side effects and adverse reactions related to the vaccines. He made these remarks during a media briefing held today.
There's a news report that in Norway there have been some problem with the elderly people who had taken the vaccine. And I think we are very seriously looking at all this data by our specialists and to see exactly what's happening in the world. Therefore, I think, these are all learning experiences, and these companies have signed a NDA with us, non-disclosure agreements, to say that they will never hide any of the side effects with the government of Sri Lanka. Therefore, the public hasn't got anything to worry. Our experts will look at all the details as to what the side effects are and how often are these coming, and what are the benefits of the vaccine against the disadvantages of the vaccine. If the benefits of the vaccine far outweighs the disadvantages, we will definitely bring that vaccine. Therefore, we are studying about all the vaccines, and some good news will come to the public in the near future.
The construction of the Palliagoda CCT market complex belonging to Sri Lanka State Engineering Corporation resumed yesterday. The project was initiated under the instructions of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The relevant project will be initiated under the Urban Development and Housing Ministry with a complete supervision of the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister Yoshida Rajapaksa, and will be conducted by State Minister Indika Anuruddha. The constructions will be carried out by Sri Lanka State Engineering Corporation. This project was initiated during the presidential tenure of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. However, the project was completely abandoned during the previous government period. Following the completion of this project, consumers will be able to obtain all materials, products and services relevant to construction field from one location. In parallel to the constructions, the official website of the market complex was also launched. Accordingly, services can be obtained through www.cct.lk. The ownership of several trade stalls was officially handed over to the owners during the ceremony. Meanwhile, 50 employees who had completed their services at the National Machineries Institute received 23.3 million rupees worth gratuity at the ceremony. State Ministers Indika Anuruddha and Sisira Jayakodi, parliamentarians Upul Mahendra and Mila Jayatilaka, and Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister Yoshida Rajapaksa were present at this occasion.
Speaker Mahinda Abewardena says that the ability of former Minister Ranjan Ramanayaka to attend parliamentary sessions will be announced following an efficient and thorough study in this regard. He made these remarks while responding to a query directed by the opposition today. Responding to queries and objections raised over the parliamentary seat of former Minister Ranjan Ramanayaka by the opposition, led by opposition leader MP Sajith Premadasa, Speaker Mahinda Abewardena said that his ruling on MP Premalal Jayasekara was delivered after a careful consideration to relevant laws and proceedings. He further said that MP Jayasekara was not allowed to attend the parliamentary sessions initially. Accordingly, the Speaker said that he requires some time to carry out a study on the case of the parliamentary seat of MP Ramanayaka before delivering a ruling in this regard.
Attorney General has advised the Secretary to the President on the MCC Compact and affiliated agreements today. The Coordinating Officer of the Attorney General's State Council, Nishara Jayaratna, has indicated that the relevant instructions were directed after considering all relevant observations in this regard. Coordinating Officer of the Attorney General's State Council, Nishara Jayaratna, said that according to the instructions directed by the Attorney General, citing that the MCC Compact Program as well as other agreements of association of MCC are inconsistent with written laws and the Constitution. Thus, the Attorney General has mentioned that there was a legal barrier in implementing the proposed MCC agreement, the State Council added.
Well, a special discussion on converting television channels in the country from analog technology to digitalization was held at the Ministry of Mass Media. The discussion was held between Minister Keheli Rambukwella and Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, Akira Sugiyama. The preliminary agreement process was formulated in this regard following the Japanese Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka in 2014. However, this process was halted following the government change. The objective of this project is to introduce and establish digital technology in the country. Minister Kelly Rambukala has pointed out that 90% of this process has been concluded. A provision worth $162 at concessionary interest rate of 0.025 have been granted for this project by the government of Japan. Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, Jagat P. Vijayveera, Director General of Telecommunication, Regulatory Commission, Oshida Senanayaka, Additional Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, Ruwan Sarat Kumara were present at this occasion.
The proceedings of the Court of Appeal commenced via video technology yesterday. The aim of this initiative is to maintain the court proceedings in an effective manner amidst the COVID-19 outbreak. Accordingly, court proceedings of the Court of Appeal were commenced in 205, 110 and 107 court chambers. Internet connections have been facilitated in Valikada and Angurkola Palace prisons for this purpose. The relevant methodology has already been in place in 28 prisons in the country. Accordingly, the opportunity has been facilitated to present inmates before the Court of Appeal through digital technology. The relevant process is in place under the complete monitoring of the Judicial Services Commission. The Ministry of Justice has taken steps to initiate an extensive judicial automation project. It includes a filing system for court cases, judicial management system and a system to record the judicial process. The relevant project will be conducted under the guidance of Information and Communication Technology Agency.
UNP councillor of Mihintale Pradesh Sabha, Indika Rukshan, has allegedly assaulted its opposition leader Minsar Mohammed at the monthly session of the Mihintale Pradesh Sabha today. The monthly session of the Mihintale Pradesh Sabha was headed by its chairman Lal Seneviratna. Before the commencement of the session, UNP councillor Indika Rukshan arrived at the Pradesh Sabha premises and seated on the opposition leader's seat. UNP councillor Indika Rukshan assaulted opposition leader Minsar Mohammed upon his arrival to the chambers. Other councillors made the effort to douse the disturbance took place in the Pradesh Sabha chamber. Subsequently, UNP councillor Indika Rukshan was sent out from the session and steps were taken to inform the police regarding the incident. Accordingly, UNP councillor Indika Rukshan was taken into police custody and released on bail this evening.
A police investigation unit affiliated to the Ministry of Lands was established today. The objective of the new unit is to release lands which are being encroached and with the possibility of being encroached in future through illegal and unauthorized manner. The unit was declared open by Minister S.M. Chandrasena. The police unit will be initiated under the supervision of retired DIG Sumit Edrisingh. The unit consists of an ASP and 2 IPs. And that's it for tonight's news. Do watch us tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.